Hey, Bruce Reba here, author of Freedom's Quest on Amazon and Woodpecker on Kindle Vella. Hey, the other night I was talking to somebody about our Ascension Island UFO we saw, or somewhat like a UFO. So in my one of my previous jobs for 7 years I was a diver for the United States Air Force on the Eastern Test Range. And part of that test range was Ascension Island. It's extremely remote in the middle of the Atlantic. Look it up. Great fishing, great diving. But we were coming down from a barbecue up on Green Mountain on Ascension, and we're going down the old NASA road when the sun had set, but the stars weren't quite out. When out of the southwest came a brilliant light, and it was so bright, we stopped the truck. And there was 5 people in the bed of the truck, and there was 2 people driving, and there was a lot of alcohol involved. I'll have to say that, a lot of alcohol involved. And we stopped, we pulled the truck over, and we were gaping at this light. And as a point of reference, all the launches from Kennedy Space Center, the shuttle, the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, military payloads, they always came out of the northwest. And sometimes they went over, and sometimes they landed right near Ascension Island. So this was coming out of the south, which is automatically like, what the hell is that? So the light grew in intensity until suddenly you could nearly make out an object coming out of orbit on fire. And it was obviously uncontrolled, but it was massive. And the smoke, the biggest detail was the smoke that was billowing out in front of this thing as it flew over our head. And it shot from the eastern horizon to the western horizon above us. And about, say like the speed of an airplane, it seemed like. The contrail, or the smoke trail, was V-shaped, and by the time it got fully over us, the V-shape was so wide across the sky that I could hold my arms up in a Y shape, and the smoke trail was wider than my arms, as this thing was burning up. And then also, kind of neat, was as it was burning up, it was dropping pieces and parts, and we witnessed at least 3 items detach and at a slower speed go across the sky. As a matter of fact, as the main object flew by, the 3 smaller objects were still shooting across the sky at a slower pace, and they weren't burning up like the main one. And I was of course I was hoping to see little green men in a window, but that wasn't what we saw. So the next day, I asked the radar people, because we were on Ascension Island as a tracking site. I asked the radar people what they saw, and of course they recorded it, but refused to say a word. And the reason became obvious, but it wasn't until about 10 years or more later, when an American satellite fell out of orbit, that I was reading an article about all the American and Soviet satellites that had fallen out of orbit. And sure enough, one of the giant nuclear-powered Russian satellites had dropped into the South Atlantic at that exact same time we had seen this thing. And so that's what it was. It was a giant Soviet satellite, and that's why the Americans on the tracking site wouldn't mention it, because Cold War BS. But we probably all got irradiated or high dose of radiation from this thing. But it was one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen in my life. And then the next day is when I learned that witnesses to a crime are never reliable. Because I went to these 6 other people who saw this from my same vantage point, and I said, draw me a picture of what you saw. And son of a gun, if 2 of the people drew the classic UFO shaped object. And I'm like, no, what the hell? There was no flying saucer. Whatever this was, there was no flying saucer. And then my direct manager, he drew a little object, and then he just wrote initials CCCP. So he had the best guess, most common sense out of all of us. But it was really interesting to learn how other people perceive any event, and we all perceive reality different. And anyway, just thought I'd share that Russian satellite story with you. But hey, Bruce Reba out.